Hey, Rube, how you doing?
Hey, Dave.
Welcome back. We missed you.
Missed you too. I have some breaking news, Dave.
What's that?
This just in. Today's your birthday. Happy birthday, Dave Zangaro. I want everybody at home to join me in a rousing rendition of... No, I'm not going to sing happy birthday, but everyone at home, please sing happy birthday to Dave.
There was one time during COVID where it was my birthday and we had like our morning conference call, and our old boss made everyone sing to me on that call. And it's one of my least favorite memories working here.
I actually have a recording of that. So
felt very uncomfortable.
Can we play that now, please?
But thank you. That's very nice. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast, brought to you by Nissan, Reuben Frank, and Dave Zangaro, who just turned 23. Not quite. All right.
And this is how you're spending your birthday, doing a podcast for everybody.
Wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I love the podcast. So we have a lot to talk about. We just got back from the Jefferson Health Training Complex talking to Howie Rose. It still feels weird.
With a new sign. They got the sign up.
I'm trying to motor through it every time, and it feels weird every time.
It does, and it will for a while.
Yeah. We just got back from talking to Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman in their pre-draft availability. So we'll talk about some of the things we gained from that, and there wasn't a ton, honestly. There was a trade since the last podcast. We want to talk about Dontayvion Wicks, what the Eagles are getting, what we think that trade means for the offense. I've gotten a lot of comments like, hey, why are you guys so afraid to talk about Dianna, Russini, and Mike Vrabel? We're not afraid. We're going to talk about that in a little bit too. We just haven't been together. So we'll do that. We'll rank most likely positions the Eagles are going to draft in the first round, and we're all going to answer questions. There's a lot in this podcast.
Yeah, we'll probably go 3, 4, maybe 5 hours on this one.
I hope not. We have a TV show to get ready for. But let's start with the trade last week. Dontayvion Wicks. It was a 6th-round pick this year, a 7th-round pick next year, right? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Or 5th and a 6th. 2 day 3 picks. What do you make of the trade?
Yeah, so leaves him with 8 picks this year as of now. That's going to change probably several times next week, but
it was a 2026 5th rounder, a 2027 6th rounder.
Yeah. And obviously everyone's going to make a big deal about the Sean Mannion connection, and that's big. And obviously it's a guy that he signed off on, a guy that he coached last year in Green Bay. But this is all part of Howie's plan to, and he's talked about this before, and he talked about it today. We'll get to that, but he hasn't liked their wide receiver depth in recent years, and he said he talked today about how lucky they've been that Devontae and AJ, and they got a little banged up last year, but they haven't had any serious injuries over the years since they've been the 1-2. But they don't have depth there. They haven't had depth there. They've had, guys like Jahan Dotson and those kind of that level guys, Zach Pascal, those kind of guys as backups. And so they wanted to beef up that room. And look, they're going to tell you it has nothing to do with AJ. And I believe that Howie would have made all these moves, whether there was any question whether AJ was coming back or not, because they've got to get better at wide receiver beyond 1 and 2. Now, if AJ's not here, now you have more depth, but I don't think any of these guys is going to be wide receiver 2 if AJ's not here. Maybe it's possible. Hollywood Brown might have the best chance to be a 2 if AJ's not here, but I still think they're going to draft a wide receiver who will be 2 if AJ's not here, and would be 3 if he is here. And these guys are depth. Their depth pieces are all guys that have been kind of disappointing in a way to some extent. Maybe Wicks not as much because he was a later pick.
5th rounder.
5th round pick. The other guys were higher picks, but I'm talking about Elijah Moore and Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. But they needed more depth, and take them all to training camp and let it sort out. I think there's a good chance they're not all going to make the team, but you see what they have, what they can do, and who can help this team. And whatever is going on with AJ, at least you have some options there at wide receiver.
Yeah, I think it's them living in both worlds a little bit. It's kind of preparing for life after AJ, but not fully going into that, because I think Wicks can be a solid player if AJ Brown's here. It's not like he's only going to play if AJ Brown's here. So I think it is them living in both worlds a little bit. Dontayvion Wicks. So a quick Dontayvion Wicks story here. He's 24 years old. He'll turn 25 in June. has played 3 NFL seasons, was a 5th-round pick out of Virginia in 2023, has had decent production. Not crazy. His best year, I guess, was his rookie season, 39 catches for 581 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's been solid. He's been a solid player. I think he has been buried on their depth chart a little bit. And if anyone knows that, though, it would be Sean Mannion and Ryan Mahaffey, who was his receivers coach, by the way, recently in Green Bay. Those two know him, so they know his background, how hard he works, all that stuff, but they also know the situation he might have been in Green Bay. And if they see some potential in him, you get why the Eagles might too.
Yeah, no doubt. Nobody would know better than those guys. And one thing, I think we mentioned this on an earlier pod, but the Packers I think they had 6 guys with 40 or more targets last year, including a running back and a tight end. That's a lot. I think there's only 3 teams that had more guys who had that many targets. That's spreading the ball out. And when you do that, like no one guy is going to have 1,000 yards. You can have a bunch of guys with 400, 500, 600 yards, and that's what they had. So the Eagles were kind of the opposite last year, where 3 guys got like 90% of the targets. So I'm curious about him. I'm curious what he can do. Howie spoke highly of him today. He referenced a 4th down catch he had last year against the Lions, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look that up. Said he played well against the Eagles. And the Eagles play the Packers every year, so they've seen him. But again, I wouldn't get my hopes up super high.
Now, the difference with him as opposed to a Hollywood Brown or an Elijah Moore is that they gave up draft capital to get him, 2 day 3 picks, which is not nothing. I mean, that's somewhat significant for Howie to give away 2 draft picks. And then they extended him by a year, and it's been reported a $12 million extension. We'll see how much of that money is real, but it's
a third of it.
Yeah, but like there's going to be real money involved in it. And even if you say, all right, well, you look at this year and you add it to next year and you average them out, sure, but it's an extension for a player you also gave up draft picks to acquire. So I don't think it's as much of a lottery ticket in their view as some of the other 1-year deals they've signed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think I'm not going to say he's a roster lock, but as long as he's functional in training camp, he's going to be on the team.
I'd be pretty surprised if this is it's the most significant resources they put to the position since they acquired Dotson.
Yeah.
For a 3rd round pick. And it's not saying that's not going to change if they draft one in round 1 or round 2, which is very possible. But for now, it's certainly looking like he's on the team.
Yeah, I would think so.
And we'll see where he kind of files into the pecking order. He's someone who can do some of the dirty work. He's a good blocker, and it's not why you bring him in necessarily, but they like to have some good blockers. I think that's important for this scheme as well. He can play inside, he can play outside. I think he's a useful player.
Yeah, he's not a super fast guy like Hollywood was. I don't know if he still is. But I'm looking forward to seeing all these guys in camp and letting it all kind of sort itself out. And Darius Cooper's still around too, who I don't know where he's going to fit in, but
and a Johnny Wilson, who, if we're talking about blocking, that's his strength.
Yeah, so it's an interesting group of receivers. Boy, they gave up a 3 for Dotson. It's a lot. It's a high price for a guy that he set up the first touchdown in the Super Bowl, but does that make it worth it?
Yeah.
In Howie's
mind, yeah.
Yeah.
Howie's talked about that with the Golden Tate trade.
Yeah.
Because Golden Tate caught a touchdown in a playoff game, not even the Super Bowl, and he said that 3rd round pick was worth it.
Even though he ran the wrong route.
Hey, he caught the pass.
That was 4th down, wasn't it?
Oh, man, I don't remember.
It was a 4th down. So he's a guy, like all 3 of these guys have had like a season where they've had like 500 yards. Marquise Brown had a 1,000-yard season 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So they've all produced at some point. And we'll see what it looks like this year.
The one thing with Wicks too, had a drop issue that maybe he sorted out. He had a lot of drops 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Was not as big an issue last year, but it's something to keep in mind with him. Because look, if he's going to be a 3, we've talked about sometimes that 3 needs to be effective without seeing a lot of targets. And maybe that's all going to change with this new offense. Maybe it'll change if there's not 11 at the top of the depth chart. But if you're not going to get a ton of targets, you can't afford to drop any.
Yeah, that's true. No doubt.
So where would you put Wicks in the pecking order? I think if AJ's here, he's obviously one, so it doesn't really matter for this exercise. Then you have Devontae.
This exercise.
Would you have Wicks behind Devontae, or maybe Hollywood Brown and then Wicks? Maybe Elijah Moore you have high. Maybe you're a big Darius Cooper fan. Maybe you love Britton Covey. You want to put Britton Covey in there.
I'd probably put Wicks third, Hollywood fourth, then Elijah Moore.
Okay.
And then Cooper, and then Johnny Wilson.
So Wicks ahead of Hollywood.
I think so, but it's close.
Yeah, they're very different players, which makes that tough.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what Howie was looking to do, was kind of collect some different types of players here, some different skill sets.
And he's talked about that, the importance of having that in a receiver room, having different body types, different skills. Yeah. And I think that becomes even more important if it's not super top heavy, like it's been. So like it's such a weird dynamic, because everything they do at that position comes with we'll see what it means for AJ Brown. And that's inescapable still. But I kind of think that element matters more if he's not here.
And I still think if he's not here, they don't have enough. I mean, I don't think even adding these three guys, I still think they're going to have to draft a wide receiver in day one or day two.
Yeah. And look, the actions tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because he'll be here for the draft. So if they draft a receiver in the second round, what's that going to tell you? Mm-hmm. If the draft was after June 1st, we might know better.
It's such a weird deal, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it's like one big story hovering over this team. And I get it if some fans don't want to talk about it anymore. We're kind of tired of talking about it. But especially when we talk about the position, it's so tough to divorce it from that conversation.
I walked into a diner the other day when I was away on my little vacation. I hadn't been seated for 30 seconds. Guy comes up to me. Is he going to be here? Like, who? What are you talking about? The cook?
Yeah. So that's where we are with Dontayvion Wicks.
Yep.
Good name, Dontayvion.
It is. It's a great name.
Apparently, Howie's already calling him Tay.
Tay.
How do you feel about that nickname?
Yeah, I'm not
You don't get many nicknames like the middle part of a name. It's not Don. It's not
Vion.
Vion would be a weird one. He went Tay.
Yeah, I kind of can't help thinking about Taylor Swift. That's her nickname.
Okay.
And since there's like a connection between a former Eagles center and Taylor Swift, it's hard to.
Hadn't heard that. Okay.
Yeah. So Jason Kelsey's brother. Anyway.
The old center?
Yeah.
Oh. He was a center after Jamal Jackson, right?
Yeah, before Cam Jurgens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 6th round pick.
Cincinnati? Is that right?
Yeah. Eagles have done well for Cincinnati. I think Trent Cole.
Selleck,
Cincinnati. They were both late round. They were all late round picks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, best available Cincinnati.
It's been a while, I guess,
round.
though.
Yeah, it's been a while. Anyway.
Yeah.
Tay. Don't like it.
I thought you just said you liked it.
No, I don't like it.
You don't like it. Okay. That's enough on Dontayvion Wicks. Takeaways from
Wixie. If he was a Flyer, it'd be Wixie.
Wixie. I'm fired up, by the way.
You are. Dave's all fired up.
I snuck in some hockey talk while you were away.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Well, we had Ashlyn on.
Yeah.
I think that was fun. And it was good for me, and I think I got some listeners saying it was good for them. Because, look, I haven't been following the Flyers that close the last few years. It's been rough. So she was able to catch me up to speed,
right,
and get ready for this playoff run.
Well, I'm all fired up for the play-in game.
Okay,
I'm stoked for Sixers Orlando.
Is there anything that could happen to Joel Embiid that you wouldn't be surprised by at this point? Like a meteor struck the earth and landed directly on the top of Joel Embiid. You'd be like, oh.
Like every year.
Of course.
At the end of the year.
Does he just have a bunch of opened umbrellas in his house? Or
it's kind of like Carson in a way, because Carson was always at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess the back was the beginning of the year. But it's a shame because, when he's healthy, he's just such a force. And he was playing really well before this happened.
What a fluky, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, if they make the finals, if they make the East Finals, I think he'll be able to play.
I don't love those chances. All right, Nick and Howie, we were over there today. We can just ping pong this back and forth a little bit. Anything stand out to you?
Well, I asked him about,
and we should preface this by saying this is probably the least useful media availability of the year.
yeah, because it's ostensibly about the draft, but he won't talk about the draft.
Yeah. And even today, he admitted at one point, he was like, I'm not going to say that, which I understand.
Yeah. I asked him about his misses and if he studies his misses, his draft misses.
His wife? Oh, his misses.
Man, that was almost as bad as one of mine. But, he's had some prominent ones, not lately. I mean, I guess the most prominent recent miss was Sidney Brown as a 3. But he was a functional special teamer, and he just wasn't a starter. So there was a miss. But, you think more of like the, Marcus Smith and Fireman Danny and those kind of misses.
Yeah. More recently, Jalen Reagor.
Sure.
Andre Dillard.
Yeah. J-Jaw. He was a 2, but he was a spectacular miss as a 2.
There's some others. Jaquan Jarrett.
Yeah. From Temple, right?
Yeah. Can a 3 be a miss? Curtis Marsh?
Yeah. Well, depending who was available.
Nate Allen?
I don't consider Nate Allen a miss. He started for like 4 years.
Okay.
I think he had 3 interceptions in his first 3 games. And then he had like 1 the rest of his career.
Yeah, and we don't have to go through the list, but
I think the fact that they drafted Nate Allen with the pick they got from Washington for Donovan kind of factors into that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we know the misses, and there's some spectacular misses there. And he said he thinks about them every day, and he said he's learned from them, he's gotten better from them, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, the one part that made me kind of chuckle a little bit was he said, if someone brings me a player that reminds me of one of them, I feel like a certain way about it.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, don't bring him any 26-year-old fireman. He won't like it.
Yeah, well, and there are some of those 25-year-old guys in this draft because it's the last draft
COVID.
Where guys who played in 2020, they got that extra year and they had a redshirt year, so they could be coming out now at 25. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, just the fact that he studies those misses, he's learned from those misses, and he's taken steps to make sure he doesn't repeat them. Yeah.
They were asked about Dontayvion Wicks a little bit. We talked about him. The thing that stood out most to Howie about Wicks was how crisp he is at the top of his routes. Nick brought up his toughness. We mentioned his blocking. Nick brought up his toughness. And then, like you mentioned, Howie said the quarterback trusted him, which I think is important because we've talked about this before. Like, Jalen needs to be able to trust his receivers. It's part of why we've theorized some of these other guys haven't gotten targets. So we'll see if he can build that trust with Jalen Hurts.
Do you think he trusted? Do you think he trusted Dotson? Sometimes it seemed like he did. He threw to him sometimes in really big moments, but not very often.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But then again, should he trust him as much as A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith?
No.
Or Dallas Goedert? No. Yeah.
Another thing that was interesting to me, how he said basically anything we do in free agency doesn't affect the draft. Like, he was asked about, you start thinking, well, you're going to not take a wide receiver because you stockpiled all these veteran guys. No. They're going to go off their board. And
if anything, he has talked about this before. He didn't talk about it today, but they're kind of like fail safes in free agency, so you don't feel the need to reach at a position.
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. He's like, if whatever we do now doesn't affect us next week. Mm-hmm. That's important to remember. Yeah, totally.
He was asked about AJ. Said AJ is an Eagle. Made a little joke before that. So there was
the guy asked him about AJ. He said, "What do you think the odds are I'm going to answer that question?" He said, "What do you think? 50%, 75%?"
So that was a quick move on from there. Yeah. So he was asked about the Jalen Hurts reporting since the last time we spoke with him at the owners' meetings. Both of those stories from ESPN and the Inquirer came out after he spoke at the owners' meetings, and he addressed it. He didn't hide from it. He basically said that they feel really good, at least the brass of the team, about how they go to players with concerns. They're upfront with those players. He said that's one of their strengths. So he called the reports unfair, which I don't know if they're unfair, but that was his view on it. And part of me wondered if he was basically saying like, hey, if there are leaks, it ain't from us, and we don't want to handle it that way.
Yeah, that was my takeaway. I mean, I would never speculate on who a source was, but I think Howie knows.
Maybe, or like, so I think there was a valid line of thought was that, you know, the Eagles as an organization wanted to use these stories or the media in general to get through to Jalen Hurts before this really important season. I don't think that's a bad theory. I don't know. We can't really base it on anything because we don't want to source guess, and it's not really productive to do it. But I think that's a valid theory, right? Is that, man, we're trying to get through to this guy. We can't get through to him. It's a really important season. We need him to be willing to take on this coaching and to do whatever this new OC wants. Let's get it out there in the press. I think there was that thought that maybe that was the case. And I think this was Howie trying to make it clear that, at least from his perspective, that's not what this was.
Yeah, and he probably could have articulated that a little better, but that's what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got another thing from Howie and Nick today?
Well, I asked him about the safety position because they don't have a lot there. Epsy and Makuba right now are the projected starters. He said, we'll add more. That, you know.
Yeah, they've been pretty consistent with that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's an unfinished position.
Yeah.
The two positions he's been consistent with that are safety and edge rusher.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're not in the business of drafting a lot of safeties, although they drafted one in the second round last year. So, you know, we'll see what happens there. I'm still not sold on, and I know Epps played pretty well down the stretch last year after he came off IR, and Makuba did some good things. I'm still not sold on that tandem.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see. We'll see what happens.
A little bit later, we'll talk about likely first round positions. I'm curious where you have safety in that.
My list.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, there goes the foreshadowing.
Sorry. I just said it's on my list.
Oh, it's on. I thought you said top of the list.
No.
Okay. It's on your list. That's good. That's a good tease for later on. I did ask about, and this was kind of a adjoining thought to, you know, the potentially drafting Lane Johnson's replacement, having him learn under Lane. We've seen them do that. Howie brought up the Cam Jurgens, Jason Kelsey thing because that's the cleanest one. One guy learned from the other, took over. He's a Pro Bowler. You love the way that works out if it works out that way. I asked him about their willingness to be able to draft a player who doesn't have a clear path to playing time early on in their career, because some teams don't want that. Like some teams are like, I'm going to draft this guy. I know I had them for 4 years. I want to maximize those 4 years. And look, losing 25% or maybe even 50% of that cheap rookie deal on a player, like some teams are not willing to do that. But Howie said, especially for the top round guys, when they draft them, they're viewing them as, hey, 7, 8, 9 year stints with the team. They're willing to let them sit for a year or two.
Yeah, and I think the corollary to that is he was asked about developing guys, and he said, you know, you draft a 21, 22, 23-year-old guy, that's not a finished product when you get him. He's not going to be in his third year where he was in his first year, and it's important to remember that. And I think a guy like Jordan Davis is a great example. It took maybe a little longer than ideal for him to get to where he got to, but he got there. And it's an important thing to remember. Like, you know, Jahad Campbell is not the player now that he's going to be in 2 years. So
we hope not.
Yeah, you hope not. And I think the analytics say in most cases guys just get better. And we do tend to kind of pigeonhole guys. Well, he was just not a good rookie. He didn't play much. No, I'm not talking about Campbell here, just in general. You know, he was riding the bench. He barely got on the field. It doesn't mean in 2 years he might not be a starter.
Yeah. Think about,
and they think about that.
Plenty of examples.
I think his quote. Excuse me. I think he said something like, "We're drafting a guy for what he can become, not what he is now."
And I think they also, and I wanted that. This was on my list, and you don't get a ton of questions in these, but he's always talked about like day 3 picks. Like he'll take a chance on a day 3 pick because they have one elite skill, and they think they can develop into a starter as like a lot of teams are looking for backups.
Yeah.
In day 3, and they're really happy if they get a backup in day 3. And ultimately, like if that happens, that happens. But the Eagles are shooting for starters, and I think there's more risk involved sometimes with that.
That's probably true. Yeah.
But they're willing to do it, which I in general, I like that philosophy. Doesn't mean it's going to work out all the time. And we'll go through later this week. I'm starting to rank by positions, and they've taken so many 6th-round picks, and the 6th round has really not been very good to them, and they keep stockpiling in the 6th round. But it's like if they hit on one of those, they feel good about it.
Well, they did draft a Hall of Famer in the 6th round.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but I'm talking about like recent history.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, that is interesting.
Anything else from Nick and Howie?
I think that's it from Howie, really.
One little thing that Howie said that has kind of been burning in the back of my mind. He mentioned that, sometimes when you draft a player now, because of the NIL and the new world out there in college football, they're going to be taking a pay cut to come to the NFL, and you want to make sure that they can handle that. That is like, I know that, but to hear it from an NFL GM is like striking to me, because the big question about money before used to be, how is a college kid going to handle all this new money they're getting? Where now the question legitimately could be, how are they going to handle not
Less
making
money.
as much money and it being their job?
Yeah, that was interesting to me. And it used to be where the only guys who would have to take a pay cut coming into the NFL were like SEC guys. But yeah, now it's everybody.
Yeah, it was just striking to me to hear that from an NFL GM. And it just reminds you of the kind of the new world we're in of college sports.
It's crazy because, when you do like a mock draft, you're like looking at this guy's college career. And out of the 32 guys on my mock draft for next week, I think something like 26 of them played at more than one school.
Wow.
Some played in 3 schools.
Yeah.
And it's just rare to have a guy that, was in the same place.
Yeah, there was a good question from Bo Wolf about that, and I don't think Howie really understood the question. It's a tough question to ask in limited words, but it's basically like, in that world where a guy's going to different schools, you might have, like, sure, you can talk to 2 schools or 3 schools about him now, but they might not have the depth on that player that back in the day you would have had if a guy stayed at a place for 4 years.
Or are you getting an honest evaluation of a guy that left your program?
Yeah, that's fair too.
And Howie said, basically,
I trust who I trust.
I trust who I've dealt with in the past, whether, and that's the right answer.
All right. Anything else from Howie and Nick?
No, it was really Howie.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of Nick.
Wasn't a lot of Nick.
I did throw Nick a question about Dontayvion Wicks just to keep him involved,
Yeah. Poor Nick. He sits up there and there's just nothing for him during this thing.
Sometimes there's a question.
Like I even directed my safety question to both of them, which only Howie answered. But like I would never normally direct a defensive question to Nick, but I did.
Let's move on. So I've gotten so much of like, why are you guys afraid to talk about Dianna, Russini, and Mike Vrabel? I'm not.
We're terrified.
Not scared to talk about it. It is awkward to talk about because some of it is like very personal in nature, but this is a unique circumstance because it crosses over into the world of journalism, world of football, and then ultimately the Eagles because she's been at the forefront and the Patriots have been at the forefront of so much reporting and speculation about A.J. Brown. So here we are. If you've been living under a rock, those photos of those two surfaced after the owners' meetings in a different hotel away from the meetings.
What was Sedona, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And apparently like a couple's geared resort. My first reaction was optics aren't great on that. Aside from the morality of it all, of 2 married people being there, like there are journalistic practices and like journalistic integrity at stake for a reporter in a compromising situation like that.
Yeah, and it is kind of awkward to talk about because I mean neither of us ever talks about other journalists unless it's praising something they did.
Or like, yeah, I mean we talk about their work if it becomes a talking point or something like that.
But yeah, I wrote in my obs on Sunday, like they taught us on the first day of journalism school, the appearance of a conflict is a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Like if people see you and Mike Vrabel holding hands at a couples resort on a rooftop bar, like whether it was, whatever the intent was, it's just a really bad look. And I wrote that, and our old pal Harvey texted me and said, who he used to work with, said, at WVU, West Virginia, they didn't teach us that till the third day. So I appreciated that. But it's just a really bad look. And it's natural for anybody to wonder about her reporting about Vrabel, about the Patriots, and by extension about the Eagles and AJ. Does she have an agenda there? Is she carrying out Mike Vrabel's agenda? Is he telling her, get this out there, get this out there? And it was also interesting to note that she was the one that reported that the tush push was going to be banned last year, and then was the first to report that it wasn't going to be banned, and that Mike Vrabel was on the competition committee. Mm-hmm. So you look at all that stuff, and from an Eagles standpoint, you certainly wonder if there's any tampering going on, and I'm sure the league will look into that. The personal stuff I don't care about. It's the ethics, and like how much is she affecting this story because of her relationship with the coach.
Yeah, and it's like, is there any kind of a mission to further it along? Yeah. Like those are fair questions. We don't know the answer to them, so it becomes all speculation. I will say that I don't think it's really changed my opinion on the ultimate outcome of the situation with AJ Brown. I think some people it has maybe changed their opinion. For me, that hasn't changed my opinion of that. I don't think Howie Roseman's gonna operate any differently in the post world of knowing. Like, I don't think he cares about that. I think he's gonna try to, if he can maximize value for a player, he's gonna do it. Has it changed your opinion of that part of it at all?
A little. Like, I think there's a fair chance that he gets traded to a team other than the Patriots.
Okay. And I think that the number of teams there dwindles a little bit. We know the Rams have publicly stated they engaged in talks with the Eagles that ultimately didn't create a trade. So yeah, I mean, maybe that part of it is different. If there's been like one source churning out, like this is the team, this is the team, this is the team, maybe there are other teams that we just don't know about. Yeah.
It's such a weird situation and unprecedented situation.
Well, it's unprecedented in that look, there are always relationships with coaches or sources that are probably too close in nature. Being buddies, being too close of friends with a coach could be a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And would be. It's just, this part of it. So, if there's a romantic angle to it, it's a little different.
Yeah. They were holding hands, Dave. I mean, it's just such a bad look. And it adds to the whole thing. Like, her husband's a huge Eagles fan.
Yeah. I don't want to get into
that. I don't know. There's just so many pieces of this that I can't really wrap my arms around. No pun intended. I didn't mean that. But I'm curious how it's all gonna play out. I know the Athletic is not super happy with her.
Yeah, they're looking into it and all that. It's a weird thing. And some people are saying there's a double standard between her and Vrabel. Yeah, I mean, because like Vrabel is not in a business where this is. I mean, maybe it's frowned upon by his bosses, but like there aren't rules to being a coach that say you can't fraternize with reporters, right. Whereas there are rules for reporters to not fraternize with coaches.
Yeah. I mean, the Athletic is owned by the New York Times, and they have their code of ethics applies to all the Athletics staff. So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. The last thing I will say is like there are a lot of really good female reporters in this business that have to fight against this crap all the time.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that.
And like, man, it's unfair to them. It just is.
Yeah, I mean, we've both been around a lot of really, really good female reporters, and it's not how they do their jobs.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a shame if it kind of reflects poorly on other people.
Yeah. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to get into the most likely position for the first round for the Eagles next week.
Wow. You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
We're back on the Eagle Eye Podcast, brought to you by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro with you.
How's your birthday so far?
My birthday's been pretty good so far. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm actually surprised my mom didn't call me. My mom, maybe she did. My mom normally calls me the time of my birth, which is very sweet.
And what time is that?
I believe it's 12:24 p.m. Yeah. What a mom thing to do. But it's a very nice thing. I think I might have been in the press conference, honestly, when that time happened, so I might have missed it. I'll have to call her back. Okay, so positions Eagles are most likely to draft in the first round. I have my list. I figure I can just go through my list and you can tell me if you disagree or agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
That work?
Yeah.
All right, we'll build up some suspense here. I'll start at number 5. I went tight end. And I have it so low because there's really one tight end who we're talking about is Kenyon Sadiq. But I think that would be a really good outcome for the Eagles to get Kenyon Sadiq. And I think the way last year's draft went has kind of altered my opinion on the likelihood of this, making it more likely. Like last year, I went into this thinking there's no way in heck they draft a linebacker in the first round. And not only did they draft one, but they were trying to trade up to take one, which is such a departure from what we used to think about the way the Eagles prioritize positions. But they viewed it as we're going to get a blue chip player. He's the best at his position or one of the best. Like he's the best at that position. And a lot of those same things apply to Kenyon Sadiq.
Yeah, I think just the fact that Howie spent a ton of money on a running back 2 years ago, I think that tells you he's kind of maybe thinking about breaking out of some of the restrictions that he put on himself as far as roster building.
Or at least willing to make some concessions if the player's special.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, this player could be really special.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It would be a fun pick.
It'd be one, like, if we're talking about, like, what pick would fans be most excited about, I think Kenyon Sadiq is probably at the top of the list. Because normally it'd be, like, a receiver, but if they draft a receiver in the first round, I think there's going to be, not that people wouldn't be excited about that player, but the discussion about A.J. Brown, I think, would really take over again. And people are so tired of that.
So, yeah, and I think there's a chance he won't be there at 23. There's a fair chance of that.
Yeah.
But if he is, I would jump on him.
Okay. Number 4, I have safety. And the only reason I have safety above tight end is because there's a couple that might make sense. In hindsight, this was really close for me, and I might even put tight end ahead of it if I had to redo it. But there are a couple. Dylan Thieneman, it makes a lot of sense. And then Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo. Those are the two in the first round that could be in the Eagles' range. So you have two options there.
Yeah. And that would be another. They've never taken a safety in the first round, right?
Never.
Dalk was a second rounder. Nate Allen was a second rounder. Sorry to put those two in the same breath.
And then Makuba.
And Makuba was a 2. That would be another way to break out of those shackles, something different. I don't think it's that far-fetched.
I don't think it's super far-fetched. I think it's still relatively unlikely, especially because I think they're going to lean offense early in this draft if they have their druthers, which, it might not land the way they wanted to.
It was funny because I think it was Zach Berman asked Howie about 9 of your last 11 picks have been defensive, and Howie was like, I think it's 10 out of the last 12. I haven't checked it, but I trust Zach's numbers more than Howie's on that. But it was funny because Zach asked a question and Howie said, well, I need some examples. You never say that to Zach because he will give
He'll have them ready.
He'll give you all the examples. But yeah, it'll be fun. And I think the Oregon kid would be there, I would think. Possibly.
I'm not so sure.
We'll see. But
Okay.
I like that idea.
Number 3, I have wide receiver. A ton of receivers in this draft. A ton of receivers in every draft, honestly, at this point.
Most of them from Ohio State.
Well, they won't get that kid, but there are other receivers who, whether it's Omar Cooper or maybe Jordan Tyson slides into that range. Denzel Boston's been talked about. There are a bunch of names at receiver, KC Concepcion, like guys who might be in that range. And yeah, I think receiver is a position where they will look to add, if it's not day 1, probably day 2.
Yeah, so Tyson, Concepcion, I'm just looking at my next mock, and Boston were the 3 guys I had on the board when they picked.
So who was off the board? Cooper?
Yeah, will be
Omar Cooper off the board?
Yeah, he was off the board. And Lemon is off the board.
Yeah, Mekhi Lemon, and I figure Carnell Tate off the board.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So I had him taking Tyson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had him taking Tyson. Big, strong guy. Another one who started at Colorado, I think, finished at Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll see. I think Devontae was the last offensive guy Howie took in the first round, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So that was 5 years ago. So that certainly wouldn't surprise me. And when he says, what we do in free agency doesn't affect what we're going to do in the draft, like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's possible. Tyson has some injuries in college, but the Eagles have
an ACL a few years ago.
The Eagles have been kind of opportunistic about college injuries, and if a player slides to them because of that. So I think that's in play.
You know who his position coach was at ASU?
No.
Hines Ward.
Oh, I did know that, actually. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So he's well coached.
Yeah. Number 2 on my list, edge rusher. And I don't know exactly who's going to be there. There are going to be some decent options, but it's a position where if they go defense, I think it would be an edge rusher over safety, over anything else.
I would agree. That's most likely. If they go defense, it would be an edge.
Keldrick Falk to me is the one who would really check a lot of boxes in terms of body type, value. There are some others, if I don't know about a Zion Young or, Messidor is a weird one because he's an older prospect, 25 years old. Yeah. But there are some other guys who might be in that range too, and they need some more at that position.
Yeah, they do, especially like we don't know Nolan Smith's. I don't know what kind of player he's going to be. And this would all be so much easier if I had a really good sense of who he is as a player. Is he the guy we saw at the end of 24 or the guy we saw last year? I just don't know. I don't think they know. So that's another thing. Howie was asked about fifth-year options on those 2 Georgia guys and said he doesn't.
Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
We can't just say the 2 Georgia guys.
Lewis Seen, maybe
45 of them.
Lewis Seen, Keeley. But yes, he said, that falls into contracts, and we don't talk about contracts. But
I would imagine they're going to pick up both of those.
You would think.
In Jalen Carter's case, it's just a placeholder. In
Yeah.
Nolan's case, I think there's a chance he ends up playing on that 5th year.
I would agree. Yeah, so edge makes a lot of sense.
And then 1, I have offensive line.
And how close is O-line and edge for you?
Not close.
The O-line is much more likely?
I think it's much more likely because I think there are, in terms of the players individually, I think there are a lot more players who really check. And look, I made it O-line and not offensive tackle because there's 1 guard. We're talking about Venga Ioane from Penn State.
Penn State guy.
Yeah, and I think he'd be a home run pick. He's one of the few picks or players in this draft that seem like they're just going to be really good. There's never a sure thing, but he seems like the closest to a sure thing that the Eagles would have a chance at based on where they're picking. And I think they probably have to move up a little bit for him. But if he's in range, I like that idea. And then there are just so many tackles and different flavors in this class. I've been really big on Max Ionichor from Arizona State. But if you like a Caden Proctor, he's there. If you like a Blake Miller, he's there. There are Caleb Lomu. I think Spencer Fano is probably gone. But like there are just a bunch of guys who makes Monroe Freeling probably gone. But like there are so many of them in the first round.
And that we've seen this before when there's that many guys who are draftable in the first round, that pushes a guy who in another year might be the 15th pick, might push him down into the
theoretically,
mid-20s.
But sometimes it also creates a rush,
yeah,
to draft those guys. And you're sitting there at 23, you might feel the need to get up before they run out.
Yeah. But I would agree with your rankings.
Okay.
I might flip-flop safety and tight end.
Have tight end higher than safety?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But like you said, there's only one tight end they could draft. So that kind of reduces the odds.
But
there's
that
not a
tight
ton of
end, I would
safeties
feel,
either.
I think you would, if I told you just not knowing anything else, the Eagles come away from this draft with Kenyon Sadiq or Dylan Thieneman, I think you'd rather say Kenyon Sadiq.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
All right. That was fun. A lot more to come on the draft in the next couple of pods because we're almost there.
And just a reminder, we'll have a pod every night of the draft. Mm-hmm. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It might be late.
Oh, it might not be mine. It's going to be late. Even though they cut down the time in the first round this year.
They did. That'll help a little bit.
Yeah. Want to do some emails?
Yeah.
Let's do it. eagleeye@nbcuni.com. That's nbcuni.com. We'll just get into it here. First one from Alex. Longtime caller, first-time listener. Wait, that's what it says. During the show on March 26, you briefly touched on drone/AI officiating. My question may sound sarcastic, but just hear me out. What will we talk about if the calls are never wrong? Having a debate is part of the human condition. This could be a good deep dive pod for the slow off-season. I began to think about this as I volunteer with youth sports. Our field maintenance is no longer done by our groundskeeper. As they say in the South, he gone. Cutting and lining the field is done by robots. The casual conversations we had will no longer exist. I guess we can take up our complaints with Alexa and Siri. When can we be certain they will give us the right answer? I messed up the last part of that, but you get the idea. Human condition, we like complaining about refs. I think there's always going to be plenty to complain about.
What do you think about the ball strike thing in baseball?
I think it's gone way better than I expected.
Yeah. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the Kyle Schwarber one where he did it and started walking first. It's like I think it's gone better than I expected, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, the ones where the ball is like just barely over the plate
it's
or
pretty
just barely
fun.
off. It is. I kind of like it.
There's like now the only thing is like just talking about like watching sports and like it is funny to think about like punching a guy out and he taps you gotta wait. You know, like the celebration of a big moment might have to be delayed. But I don't know. I've actually enjoyed it more than I thought.
Yeah, me too.
There was a moment in the Flyers game on Monday night where they assessed a 4-minute penalty for high sticking because it drew blood. And they did the replay. And it turns out he was not hit with a high stick. It was an elbow. But since they called a high stick on the ice, and that's what they reviewed, they waived off the penalty and they couldn't assess an elbowing penalty.
Really?
Which was annoying as a viewer because you're like, well, he elbowed him. Like, I think there are always quirks when you have replay that you have to just figure out, because if you have the ability to get it right, like get it right. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one thing. Football, I guess, I mean, in basketball, you could like review for one thing and then you see something else, you can make that what you're overturning.
Yeah.
Honestly, if there was no replays in any sport, I'd be okay with it. I don't mind.
Oh no, I think
I'd be fine with it.
No, we're too deep into it now. We
Yeah,
can't go back.
It'll never happen, but I'd be okay with it.
Okay. Yeah, not at this point. I wouldn't be. Yeah, I don't want to go back.
They still haven't figured out how to get DPI right.
There's a lot of things I haven't quite figured out how to do yet, but we're all trying.
The other thing I don't like about the ball strike thing is like it becomes such a part of your strategy, whether to question a call or not. Like, I just think getting the call right shouldn't involve strategy. It should be just you get it right or you don't get it right. You fix it or you don't fix it. But
So how do you feel about in the NFL having limited number of challenges?
I just don't like it.
Then you also get into a pace of play thing.
Yeah.
Which, like, baseball has done such a good job to pick up pace of play.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't want to go backwards.
But I hate the fact that there could be like an abomination of a call, but, we don't have a challenge. So, I don't like that.
Yeah. And the NFL talks about pace of play quite a bit. They like where they're at right now. That I was listening to Rich McKay talk about it at the owners' meetings that, the replay is expanding for, like, tossing a player out of a game. They're allowing them to call it from New York and then assess a penalty on the field, but they want to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Which is, it's tough to serve both there.
Yeah.
Next one is from Evan. Who are some of your favorite day 2 and day 3 prospects? I imagine with many mock drafts just featuring one round, fans are or will become familiar with the likely day 1 possibilities. He also says, thank you for all the great content you both have provided over the years. And he gives a list of some of his draft crushes. He said we don't have to include them, but there are some fun ones in here. I'll just run through his draft crushes. Then I come up with a list of just like 3 guys that I really like in this draft. Sawyer Robertson, the quarterback from Baylor. Emmett Johnson, the running back from Nebraska. Zachariah Branch from Georgia. Joe Royer from Cincinnati. Jennings Dunker from Iowa. Great mullet.
I like that name.
Yeah. Dante Corleone, defensive tackle from Cincinnati. Denai Dennis Sutton from Penn State, who I like quite a bit. Jimmy Rolder from Michigan. Takario Davis from Washington, the defensive back, cornerback. And then he gave me a kicker, Drew Stevens from Iowa. I love that. So good work out of Evan there. I came up with a list of 3 guys that I just like. One is a quarterback, Haynes King from Georgia Tech. I started watching this guy because he was one of Sean Mannion's quarterbacks at Shrine Bowl. And he's just fun. He's real dual threat. He's super fast, like shifty, fun quarterback. I don't know if he'd be an option for the Eagles in day 3. Skylar Bell, receiver from UConn. I like this kid a lot. I think he has a chance to be really, really good. I think he's probably going to be round 3, maybe sneaks in or falls a little bit to round 4. And then at cornerback, D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. You probably know about D'Angelo Pons if you watched a lot of the college football playoff, but he's just a really fun player. So those are the 3 guys that and then if we're talking first round, I'm staking my claim to Maxi Hanachor.
You love him.
I do. Yeah, I really do like Maxi Hanachor.
You know where Skylar Bell started out before he went to UConn?
Yeah, Wisconsin.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Watertown, Connecticut.
Yeah. Good player. Want to take a couple more?
Yeah.
Next one is from Mark. Hey, Dave and Reuben, love the podcast. Since they are always talking about an 18-game season, here's a suggestion that I think would probably never work for non-football reasons, but I would love to hear your thoughts on. 18 regular season games, but each player can only play 16 of those games, meaning they need to sit out at least 2 games. Expand the rosters and whatever else to accommodate this change. Imagine the strategy that would go into planning which games your franchise quarterbacks was going to sit out. If you would run all the backups for 2 games or mix and match against which teams you want to play your backups, etc. You could also rest a player who has a nagging injury because you know they need to miss 2 games at some point anyway. And if a player is injured, it has less of an impact on your season since everyone is losing their best players for 2 games. It also allows for record books to stay consistent with 16-game season years.
Too late for that.
Too late for that, yeah.
Part of the problem with that is, hey, we got tickets for the Eagles-Giants game. Oh, Saquon's not playing. Yeah, I mean, that's never going to happen. I get what he's getting at, and I do think 18 games it's a little scary as far as the physicality. There will be 2 bye weeks and only 2 preseason games, and it's coming soon. I would guess it's coming in the next 2 years or so, the 18-game season. But
it's fun to think about.
Yeah.
Even if it's not 16, it's 17 games.
Yeah, it's a fun idea. Never happen.
Yeah, it would never happen. But and like the reason I think the 18-game schedule will happen at some point They're going to get a lot of money. Oh, Alex has a good point. Fantasy football disaster. That's true.
That's true.
Yeah, imagine you're in the championship, but this is the game where they decide to rest your star player.
I read somewhere this morning that the 18th game will generate an extra $1 billion for the league.
Yeah, and players are going to see a lot of that.
Yeah.
So it's like it's an extra game check's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So eventually I would think it's going to go that way. I don't think it's good for players.
No.
And their health, but
yeah, I mean the second bye week, and there used to be 2 bye weeks, but way back in the day, so that'll help. But
when was that? And why was that?
Money. I think it was like the late 90s.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up. But there used to be 2 bye weeks for a few years.
Okay, let's finish it with this one from Jeff. Hi, Dave and Rube. I'm sure you both saw and heard about the Eagles trio competing in the Fanatics flag football game a couple weeks ago. I'm curious as to your thoughts about that. Was that a smart choice given the potential risk of injury? And is there anything in their contracts that would have prevented them from playing? Appreciate your thoughts and insights as always.
Yeah, I know Jalen played. I guess did Devontae play in that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure who the third one was. But, I mean, it was a league thing, right? It was a league adjacent.
Not really.
No.
Aren't
they? I don't know. I mean, if there was anything in their contracts prohibiting it, they wouldn't have done it. I don't know if anybody's ever gotten hurt playing flag football, I guess. Well, English Gardner did.
You get hurt, doing anything.
English Gardner tore her ACL, Olympic sprinter from South Jersey, from Eastern High School. Tore her ACL. She was being recruited by 100 schools, and the only one that kept their offer was Oregon. And she went there and became like an Olympian. She tore her knee playing flag football.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Jordan Hicks broke his hand getting out of the pool.
Yes, he did.
So it's extra risk. Yeah, I'd be concerned. You see, Joe Burrow was taking the game real seriously.
Was he?
Yeah, it's terrifying. But, guys can get hurt training. They can get hurt doing a lot of different things.
Fortunately, they all came out of it okay.
Yeah.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, that's true. Yeah, anything that opens them up to further risk is concerning, but you also can't bubble wrap everyone.
No.
All right, that's a good place to end. If you have a question for us, eagleeye@nbcuni.com. QR code is on the screen.
Everybody.
If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Do you have any final thoughts?
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.